Come on. What's going on, people? GunnerKing's back. Another court section. And look, the World Cup break is here. We are top of the league. Yes, we are top of the league, 5 points clear of City. January is nearly upon us. And all the talk around the town is that a new sun will soon be anointed. I'm here to talk about it. Let's go. Yes, people, welcome to another court session. It's your boy Gunner King. Big up all the people tuning in. Big up the Silver Fox. Yeah. And we're here to talk about someone very special. The headlines are being dominated by the prospect of bringing Mudryk from Shakhtar to Arsenal. And listen, it's this sort of news that really excites me. Really excites me for a number of reasons. So we're going to get into it in this show. This is going to be a call-in show as well. So at a later stage, I am going to be putting the link for you to come on and have your say regarding this topic or any other topics in relation to Arsenal and the rest of our season. So stay tuned. Obviously, if you want to come on and have your say, then by all means do so. But I'm going to open up by simply discussing what has transpired, where my thoughts are, what is sort of guiding the notion that I have that I think come the end of January, Mudryk will be an Arsenal player. So first of all, I just want to big up everyone in the chat. Big up Nippin, big up you know, sort of the Chelsea massive in the comments. And yep, he correctly brings up the fact that we will be allies in the coming weeks, and there will be plenty of content that we'll be doing in relation to the World Cup. And we're all getting behind the Three Lions. Rivalry's been put aside to do that. We know how it is. So yeah, man. As people may or may not be aware, Mudryk is a player that has been a player of interest to Arsenal for some time. He's a player that Edu's watched. He's a player that Arteta's watched. A player that Arsenal have liked. We did make inquiries this summer, just gone as well. And, you know, the inquiries were made to bring him into Arsenal. And I don't think we wanted to pay the 40 to 45 million they were quoting then. Everton, I think Brentford, a few other English clubs showed interest, clubs in Italy, Germany, Spain as well. But yeah, you know, Fabrizio has been tweeting a lot. And Mudryk actually has done a number of interviews, his most recent one being with Zinchenko's wife. And I've taken a few quotes out from that. And here you can read, he clearly said, I follow Arsenal closely. They're a very dynamic side. One surprise for me was how many Arsenal fans followed me. No other club's fans have interacted as much. They always tell me, come to us. Come to us, Mudryk, yeah? And I think that says a lot, you know, when really, you know, like when you see protracted transfers, you do see fans interacting with the players on their social media, sending them welcoming messages on Instagram, you know, on Twitter, TikTok or whatever platform. You know, the compilation artists all come out, you know, making their welcome to Arsenal or wherever videos. Um, but it's very rare that I actually see a player not only pick up on that, but actually publicly state that, to be happening. It's something that they just kind of brush off, like. But Mudryk's come out and said that Arsenal fans have been the ones that have been the most vocal, the ones that have pleaded the most, that have stated a case for him to come to the carpet the most. And I think the fact that he's publicly stated this, what I think that does is I think that I think that really shows that he appreciates that. He welcomes that. He welcomes the attention. He welcomes the interest from our club. He welcomes the interaction with our fan base. I think there is an element to a lot of the quotes that I'm going to show that I feel are a kind of prod to the Arsenal board. Come and get me, come and get me. But yeah, it's as Mustafa's saying here. It does reaffirm the notion that this is a transfer that he wants to happen. That he is welcoming the response. He is welcoming, the messages from our fan base. It's not something he spoke about as untoward or something that was overwhelming or some overbearing, something that he didn't appreciate. He seemed to speak of it in a very positive manner. So also I think it's definitely worth looking at. I think when you look at the interview that his wife gave, Zinchenko's wife, who and might add, Zinchenko is an Arsenal player now, has very much been. I think the timing, with January coming up and the choice of the particular interviewer and her link with a member of the Arsenal first team, I think that's very purposeful. That's my opinion. I think that's definitely something that he's done purposefully. To look at what else Fabrizio Romano retweeted from Court Offside today. Obviously they publicated the full story, but as you can see at the top there, it was retweeted by the man in the know, Fabrizio Romano. And yeah, Mudryk has been full of praise for Arsenal. He's happy with the interest, both now and was in the summer as well. And he admires the club and the project at the Emirates. We all know that Arsenal's success really after the buying Willian and the transfer perhaps not working out the way it should. We all saw Arsenal undergo an overhaul in our transfer policy to incorporate that of more youthful exuberance, like younger players, younger age profiles with high ceilings, their best years in front of them. The idea being that a number of them peak together en masse. So that was something we saw as well. And Mudryk certainly fits that description. He's 21 years old, matches the age profile of a number of players currently in our squad. And I do want to talk a bit more about his age in a minute. I just want to go through the reports before I really kind of deep diving and sort of give you my my further thoughts about his age profile. Some people have said we don't need any more pet projects or any youthful players. I'm going to discuss that in a bit more detail in a minute, but he certainly does. I think, well, that last bit, my intimate would be sort of the buy-in that he has into such a project, where he can come in as one of a number of the other young players and grow together, with the likes of Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, Ben White, Gabriel, Saliba, these young players, and under the tutelage of maybe Zinchenko, who's a bit older, who plays on the left-hand side, the same side that he plays on, who could perhaps put their arm around the shoulders of these players to really help them develop and bring on sort of their A game. So I like that. I like that personally. I think I like the idea of him kind of fitting in and transitioning into such a project. But yeah, there was another thing that was referenced, um, you know, today, earlier on in a tweet as well, was even sort of the quote where, he said purely from, sort of a theoretical perspective, if there was an option of being a bench player for Real Madrid or a starter for Arsenal, I'd probably choose Arsenal, you know. But I'd first want to know from the head coach that I'd receive a chance, and we all know Real Madrid. We all know their stature, recent Champions League holders, 14 times Champions League winners, the most successful club in the world, certainly the most in Spain. They also, won La Liga last season, so they did complete a double. Fantastic team. A club that dwarfs Arsenal in size. And when he's talking about choosing Arsenal over Real Madrid, and I get that there's context there of why would he go there to sit on their bench, but when there's any context of a player stipulating conditions or criteria, should I say, to which he would choose Arsenal over Real Madrid, that is enough to excite you. Like the prospect that we could win a foot race with Real Madrid in this situation, it really it affirms my previous point about the buy-in of the Arsenal project that Mudryk has. I think the connection with Zinchenko, a Ukrainian counterpart that he could formulate on the left-hand side, I think excites him. And, I think the notion that he'd come here and have a clearer pathway to a first team, and that encouraging him about a move to Arsenal more than other clubs in Europe, I think that's massive. And I think the fact, again, that he would vocalize this, again, is a means to him saying, Arsenal, you've got one job. Edu, you've got one job. Yeah. So, make of that what you will. And Mudryk has been really good in the Champions League. There was an occasion where he played very well against Madrid. His record in the Champions League this season has also been very good. So Madrid will be aware of his capabilities, his talents, and no doubt, I think we won't be the only interested club. But I definitely get the inclination that we are a club that is very high in his estimations. We are a club that he is looking at very favorably. And I think should Arsenal act, it's definitely a transfer we can do 150%. And, just to look at the very last part of the interview that I think really stuck out with me. And again, this was paraphrased from Romano and taken from Zinchenko's wife's interview that he's done recently. On the future at his club, it's not about the badge or the history. The team's style of play will play a role in my decision. It's very important. The last part, I'd be very upset if I don't get a move in the winter. Wow. So he's put the gauntlet, he's laid the gauntlet in front of his own club. He's made it very clear that he does want, he envisages, he seeks a move this winter, not the summer, not the summer after that, not the winter after that, this winter. And Arsenal are looking to, I believe, strengthen this winter, given the league position we find ourselves in. I think, given the lessons that we have learned from last January, where we didn't strengthen and Tottenham did, and it could be argued that came at the detriment to Tottenham winning top four over ourselves. I don't think the board are looking to make the same mistakes. And I've said also Our spending was a little more modest than the previous season and was offset by more sales. I think it was 115 million, offset with about 25 to 30 million in sales. And I believe that that buffer was made for another 100 or so million to be spent in January on a couple of players to really kind of see through the push. And I think at the time they thought it would be a push for top four. Who knows? We could be looking at a lot more now. So it seems to align with what Arsenal want to do, or are appearing to want to do, which is strengthen in January. There's no smoke without fire, my friends. This is massive. The fee that is being talked about now, you know, the board at Shakhtar came out and said that they wanted a fee closer to the Antony fee. But we all know how the art of negotiation works. You know, if I want £10,000 for my used car, I would not put it in for sale with, you know, whichever used car sailor dealership I'll be putting that car in with. I would not put it in for 10,000. I would put, say, 12 to 15,000, and expect through haggling that negotiation price will come down. And I think that is the case here. The fee that I am hearing that they will find very difficult to walk away from is £60 million, 60 to 65 million pounds. Now, there are other areas that we need to strengthen, as Mustafa's pointed out here. I think central midfield in Partey's position is also key, and naturally our budget this January is going to be a contingent amount set aside, I think, to strengthen 2 to 3 areas of the pitch. Now, we know that Tielemans is in the last 6 months of his contract. If we were to go in for him now, a fee would be minimal on that basis, on the basis that we could wait until the summer and get him for free. Indika, who we've looked at Frankfurt, centre-back, left-footed, left-sided, is in the same position. We know that we could probably put in a small fee with Frankfurt, or sign him for free at the end of the season. Wilfried Zaha, another player that we've been linked to, exactly an identical situation. So whether we could get those bits done for very cheap, and that could really kind of leave the bulk of the budget, you know, for a number 6, and for someone like Mudryk, I really hope that's what the way that we look at things. But yeah, big up Luke in the chat as well. It's just rumours at the moment. I tend to not to get excited about a new signing until I see it announced on the Arsenal website. Luke, I totally agree. And rumours are usually just rumours. But when you've got the player going on record, making interviews, and he did a previous interview as well, where he also, and I wanted to get the extract of that interview, but we weren't too sure with the copyright, so we left it. I will probably post a small clip of it on the YouTube channel a bit later, so look out for that. For anyone that's seen this interview that he did months ago, he was asked by a Sky Sports reporter if there was a Premier League team, if he dreamed of coming to the Premier League. He said yes. If he dreamed, or if there was a team in the Premier League particularly that he liked, he said it was Arsenal. He mentioned the project then. He mentioned Arteta and the players currently at the club. He mentioned liking the style of play that we use. He was then cornered with a final question. You know, what in a hypothetical situation where Arsenal came in for him, and he quote unquote said it would be impossible to turn down an opportunity to come to Arsenal. So we're not just talking about rumours here, respectfully, Luke. We are talking about a player coming out and vocalizing what he wants very clearly and distinctly, and doing it again in an interview with the wife of a current new signing at Arsenal and first team player in Zinchenko. These are abnormal things, bro, in my opinion. These are These are things that he is going the extra mile to do, is of my view, to be noticed, by the Arsenal fans, to get the Arsenal fans to put pressure on the board members and the manager, and I'll be leading that charge, bro. I can tell you that now for nothing. A lot of Arsenal fans that I know will be doing similar things, reading into these signals and talking more about it. And the more it's talked about, and the more that the prospect is brought into life by the excitement of fans, the more pressure that puts on the board to do the obvious. So for me, I hear what you're saying. Rumors are just rumors, but there are unique elements to the nature that these rumors exist in sort of the current sphere, of the football, the Twitter sphere, whatever you want to call it, the internet, the news and the media sort of circles as well. So yeah, big up, sort of Mudryk, and Zinchenko and his wife, for turning agent in this situation. It's definitely what I like to see. I think any advantage that we can draw on to give ourselves an edge, competitively speaking, in the transfer market, I welcome. And I really do think that Zinchenko, being a compatriot, is playing his part here, a massive part. And yeah, I mean, imagine him and Zinchenko on that left-hand side, in the event, he did dislodge Martinelli. And that's what I want to get to now, how I see him being used in the squad and where. He can play across the attacking line. So there is scope there for him to be rotated for Saka. Maybe someone in the middle if we switch back to a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1, and to play on the left. But I think that's where he's been playing most predominantly, on the left-hand side. That gives us two options. First of all, a lot has been said about Jesus. What happens if Gabriel Jesus gets injured? You're a Jesus injury away short from a disastrous season. People look at it merely from the perspective of having a left-sided option. But no, you're also looking at someone that you can use on the left that would enable a centre forward in Martinelli to be used. So there is that option as well. It gives you another striker. It adds depth and quality to your striker position, short of going out and buying a striker. And I think Balogun's been doing very well on loan at Rennes. So it would bridge that gap until the end of the season, where we could use Martinelli as a front man if needed, and bring Mudryk in on that left-hand side. We could also bring him in for games where Saka might need rest. He can compete with, say, Nelson. We've got Marquinhos as well in the squad. Vieira can play on that right-hand side. It just adds to that depth and quality that we've got, in our attacking positions, which I think is very important. Right now, we're a very attractive club to join. Our pitch is come help us win the Premier League title. Powerful thing to say. And I agree. I will go as far as to say this, and I have been pressed a lot by rival fans in this past week, particularly United fans that are losing their mind, that don't know what to do seeing us in this position. And yeah, I definitely think he raises the floor significantly from what I've seen of his appearances for Shakhtar, both in their league and in the Champions League. I've not watched a great deal of their league games. I've definitely watched a lot of their Champions League games more recently in lieu of the interest. And I think he raises the floor. Now, a lot has been said about Arsenal fans that are less skeptical on this transfer, about him adjusting to Arsenal's style of play. Because Arsenal are a team that likes to dominate possession and play predominantly with the ball in the final third, as we can see here. Europe's top 5 leagues, not just the Premier League. In this calendar year, Arsenal are 4th for entries and possession, dominance of the ball staying in the attacking third of the opponent. Now, what's been noted by those that are more skeptical of this transfer in Arsenal's fan bases, the Shakhtar are a team that attack more on the transition. He is very dangerous on the counter, which he is. When he is running at defenses that aren't rested, that aren't set into their defensive shape and organization, that is when he poses a danger for Shakhtar. And the question is begged from some that are more doubtful: Can he adapt, to the way that we play? Is that something that he can do? I think the answer is yes. When you look at his percentiles for possession, with the through balls that he makes, he's definitely sort of in the 90s. If you look at dribbles, take on success, if you look at shot creating actions, it's up there. And when you look at sort of the metrics, and when you use the eye test to look at his dribbling capability, his passing capability with both his feet, I definitely think he can adapt his game to play in a team that is more possession based, that faces up more often against lower blocks. I definitely think it's something he can do at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't share that concern. And this is another factor as well. The Ukraine aren't at the World Cup, and I think Zinchenko, his wife, they're definitely, I think, resting, but could look. Players talk. They're part of the national team setup. They're going to know each other on a first name basis. I'm sure that there'll be communication, sort of between Zinchenko and the player. Given that the player has shown an interest in Arsenal, no doubt there's going to be two-way communication. If he's doing interviews with Zinchenko's wife, it's likely to assume that he's also speaking to Zinchenko, about what Arsenal are like. What are the facilities like? What are the fans like? What are the players currently in the squad like? The training sessions. What are the board members like? What's the manager like? What is life like in London? I think all the questions that he would have about this transfer, no doubt he's going to be posing to Zinchenko. And I think with Arsenal being in the situation where Zinchenko won't be at the World Cup as a result of the Ukraine not qualifying, I think that definitely gives, sort of that time and that consideration, and that dialogue, that ability to have open communication between the two to take place for him to consider the move further. But yes, big up to the people in the chat. I'm going to go through some of the comments a bit more. Yeah, the silver one. I've only known about Mudryk since June. I was watching Scotland versus Ukraine to look at Zinchenko, and then I noticed him. We probably could have got him for 30 to 40 million for then, and I think that's right. I think what the board wanted to do, I don't think we envisaged that Smith Rowe would get injured, in all honesty. So a lot of people are like, Arsenal didn't go in for him in the summer, could have got him for cheaper then. Now he's had a good start to the season again. His price is going to go up. I get that. But we need to rationalise a bit. Smith Rowe quickly got injured going into the start of the season. He was our second top goal scorer last season. And yes, Martinelli might have taken that first team place midway through the season. But the work that Smith Rowe was doing was on that left-hand side. So it did appear like we had, going into this season, without the benefit of hindsight, adequate struggling with my words today, adequate cover and competition for that left-hand channel. That's important to remember, before we go running and shouting, about Edu not doing his job properly and Arteta and these guys being hesitant and that coming at a cost. Yes, it's come at a cost. But, I think that's the risk that they took, and they did that in good faith, with good intentions, in terms of Smith Rowe being allowed to continue to have a pathway to the first team in an area that he contributed to very well last season. Now, this is the other caveat that I wanted to bring up. In the same way that I see bringing a left-sided player in allows us to utilize Martinelli as a number 9, I have always said and maintained that Smith Rowe, for me, is a number 8 or a 10 player, either in our 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 system. When he plays on the left, he's on the narrow inside corridor. He is not hugging a touchline. He's not a touchline winger. And that is done, to allow Tierney to overlap, as what happened last season, or underlap for that matter, and then for him to maybe drift wider into the channel when Tierney's underlapped. But also because he favours taking up central positions. Now, we have switched to the 4-3-3. And the way I see it now is you've got 2 interior number 8s that are left-footed in Vieira and Odegaard. And now, if we did get that left-sided player with Martinelli and Mudryk, I feel like we could then bring to the core of our central midfield the option of using Smith Rowe, which is where I want to see him utilised more going forward. If we did then get a Tielemans, we've got 2 right-footed interior 8s, and you add that to Xhaka as well. Lokonga is in and around the squad. Then you're talking about a lot more depth and quality, So I think Zinchenko also opens up doors for our midfield and our attack. But yeah, big up Luke in the chat, and yeah, I think I know what we're referring to here. I'm going to remain cordial and respectful, but I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I'm in trouble, yeah? But yeah, his turn of pace is frightening. And we haven't seen that, since the days of maybe Overmars. I would say that Saka, Nelson, Martinelli, they've got that frightening level of pace. Jesus as well. When you look at it, Odegaard's no slouch either, But yeah, I like the fact that we are bringing in pace, incorporating pace to the way that we attack. And it's definitely, for me, something that we've utilized very well. When you look at the counter transitioning of the Liverpool game, Martinelli moving from that wide left channel, darting in between fullback and centre back to take up more of a central attacking position, doing that with real attacking verve, getting on the end of the chance and scoring. Yeah, you look at sort of how we countered for the second goal as well. Definitely with Martinelli receiving the ball from the breakdown of an attacking transition from Liverpool. I think it was a corner. And breaking forward with lightning speed. Saka then breaking on the other side to get into the box. And then also taking that central position up to get into the box, to get on the end of chances. And the speed at which we transition, I definitely think, is something that Arsenal are utilising very well this season, which is why I don't buy into this, can he play in more of a possession-based team? Yes, Arsenal are more possession-based, but I would say the difference from last season to this season is there are incidences where we are going from 0 to 100. where we are transitioning with lightning speed. We're not being as patient on as consistent a basis. There are elements of our game where sometimes we are looking in certain phases to be more direct, boom, quick, switching it on before the defense can set its shape. Yeah, obviously for the most part, we're looking to be patient and probing, but there are certain goals, certain transitions, certain games where I've seen, okay, we have looked to try and switch that up. You know, like we have looked up the ante, you know, up the speed of the transition and the velocity of it, the quickness and the directness of it, of getting the ball from the lower defensive, the midfield transition into the attacking and final third. And make no mistake, when this guy picks up the ball, or with the passes that he can pick out into the final third, he's definitely someone that can help us do that. And yeah, you know, I think the prospect of Zinchenko helping himself, you know, as Luke said, I think really excites me. And you know, I think whether it's Martinelli or him coming off the bench for tired legs, and I think they would alternate a lot. I think that can only spell real danger. You know, when defensive legs, you know, fullbacks are tired, their minds and their bodies are weary. Bringing one of these guys off the bench just to kill games off. Woo! I mean, that's all I'm going to say. That's definitely a prospect that really, really excites me. And you know, I think, you know, as I said, whether it's Martinelli or Mudryk, yeah, you know, I can definitely understand where his assessment comes from, that you know, he would pretend or feign injury if he was a right back, you know, in that situation. So guys, look, you know, I've given you my thoughts on this transfer, why I think it should happen, what the benefits are, what the potential drawbacks are. I think he would have to adapt his game to a degree to fit in with our more possession-based team, but I definitely think Zinchenko helps in doing that, with him being a Ukrainian counterpart, and you know, certainly playing on that left-hand side as well. What I want to do is I want to open up the floor now. As I mentioned earlier, you know, if you are in the comment thread, and you want to come on for the last sort of 10 to 15 minutes, and you know, sort of go over your thoughts on this transfer, or just in general, what else you might want to see happen in the January window, or just Arsenal season in general. You know, if you've got you know, sort of any queries that you might have, then look, why not jump on? You know, like I think you know, my colleague Tony, it's the silver one, if you're listening, is in a minute going to drop the StreamYard link into the chat, and you know, we'll be willing to invite guests on to give their thoughts on this transfer. And yeah, please remember, obviously, to keep your thoughts, you know, fairly cordially framed, you know, like, you know, sort of minimizing on the obscenities, and respectful, you know, to you know, the players or the team in question. You know, it's not to say you can't, you know, be critical, you know, but obviously we'd appreciate that. You know, please jump on, you know, like feel free to jump on. But whilst you're also there as well, you know, it would be great also, if you haven't already, if you're able to smash the likes, you know, to get the likes up, to keep the comments coming, both whilst you know, during the show now, and if you've got any thoughts that come to mind at the end, then, you know, leave your comments in the section, you know, of the video, and I will definitely look to respond in any way possible as well. Big up Brenny in the chat, big up Brenny in the cut, you know, like you know, if you want to jump on DWT, you know, big up yourself as well for tuning in. Guys, if you want to jump on and have your say, feel free to jump on as well. But yeah, we've been discussing Mudryk, the possibility of him coming. And yeah, whilst we are here, I think what I will do is, obviously, sort of give a shout out to our sponsors as well. We are proudly sponsored by Global Mapping Surveys, and they are a surveying company that currently assist architects, property developers, and construction companies all over the country. They offer a wide range of services, such as setting out the topographical surveys that are needed to survey land and buildings, 3D laser scanning, and monitoring. The link is in the description for the website and contact details. And, they would obviously like to thank us as well in, sort of helping them, with the promotion of their company. But yeah, in terms of Mudryk, I love this guy, man. And I think, the roads definitely do lead to, us really strengthening in January. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts? Do we buy in January? What other positions? I think we've definitely spoken in the past about Danilo of Palmeiras, the Brazilian player who plays as a 6 or an 8 actually, and he spoke very fondly, about the prospect of joining Arsenal as well. Zaha has gone on record, I think the season before last, to say that he's an Arsenal fan and was really excited at the prospect of coming to us as well. He's had a great start to the season with Crystal Palace. Is that a player that we look at as well? Tielemans, we know that the transfer saga was protracted in the summer months. He's been linked to our club for a very long time. He's been looked at, and yeah, is that a guy that we go back in for? In January, and he would only have 6 months on his contract, like Zaha. And I think maybe if we did pick up a Mudryk, and a Danilo, adding 1 or 2 of these guys as, sort of just squad bulking options for cheap, I definitely think, if we could do that with 2 or 3 players, I'd be very happy going into the business end of the season. But yeah, I think, let me know your thoughts. And, DWT says Mudryk isn't a necessity and costs a lot. He's not a striker, no, but he can operate as a second striker. His ball striking is very good. He offers a solid goal threat, mostly from the left-hand channel. And as I mentioned earlier, DWT, I don't know how early you tuned into the show, but what people need to realize about bringing in a left-sided player is it then frees up Martinelli to be used as a striker, because we wouldn't be worried about if we moved Martinelli from the left-hand side, that there would be a gap in quality or a drop from the left-hand channel. So altruistically looking at it like that, he definitely gives us, sort of an attacking option. I still do think the priority should be that 6th position when Partey's injured. But I do feel that, we did look at a winger this summer in Rafinha. That transfer didn't go through. We did bring in Marquinhos, and I am worried now for the state of Martinelli and Saka. They need to be wrapped in cotton wool. Both have gone to the World Cup. Saka, I expect to feature more heavily than Martinelli. I think there's a bit more competition in Martinelli's position in the Brazil squad, and a bit more quality in Brazil squad. And we definitely risk burnout. Excuse me a second, I just need to Yeah, we definitely risk burnout. 150%. So with these players, they need to be managed well. And in order to manage them well, I think we need to add depth to our wide areas. Nelson's come in, he's looked great, don't get me wrong. I was really impressed with him at the Zurich game that I went to. And yeah, I was definitely impressed with his turnout. But it's a huge risk, I think, to not strengthen in that area and to just rely on him and Marquinhos. And I think, again, the other option we could then have is loan out Marquinhos, until the end of the season. Maybe have an option where that can be extended, where he goes somewhere on the continent and he just kind of slowly builds up his confidence and is playing game in, game out at another club in Europe and is building up his experience of games in Europe, for Marquinhos as well, just to kind of help build up his level as well. So yeah, Brenny's mentioned that he'd like to bring in 3 players in January: Mudryk, a DM, and a striker. I think we'll only get 2 in the window. Again, if we only get 2, and as I said, it's Mudryk or another wide player and a central midfielder. If it is a wide player that is predominantly left-sided, that allows us to push Martinelli into the number 9 position, then in essence you have given yourself a striker and you've given yourself a bridge until Balogun, who's playing really, really, really well at Rennes, really well. And for me, he is showing that he has an Arsenal future. One that he'll have to fight for, but definitely he's showing quality. And I think if we give ourselves that bridge until the end of the season, we can assess Balogun, we can assess Nketiah, we can look back on the respective seasons that they've had. And we can sort of really ask ourselves, how do we move forward? I think that's the way that I look at it. If we only get 2 players, a wide left-sided player that allows us to use Martinelli as a striker, and a 6, I think are the priorities. And I think down that is a striker one. Yeah, we're looking at Jesus and we're seeing 9 or 10 games where he hasn't scored, but no one's watching those games that knows football, that has a trained eye and is seeing a lack of impact. A front line that isn't potent. We scored the 2nd most amount of goals in the Prem this season, and not by much either, in spite of Man City having a pet monster in Haaland. So I don't think that's the sort of be all and the end all, the striker part, but I can definitely see why people are thinking maybe we do need a different profile of striker. And I agree with that to a degree as well. I've always said that I want more of a hold-up striker. Mudryk is someone that we've looked at on the left. Tammy Abraham, is someone that we've looked at who's at Roma at the moment, and he's having less of a favourable season. So, there's definitely a lot of options, no doubt. And, I think these are the positions that we do look at. And, I think, I think the midfield and the wide left one should be the real priorities. But yeah, last season we looked at Vlahovic. That transfer fell through, and I think had we been in the position we are in now last season, I think that would be a transfer that Vlahovic would have looked on more favourably. It's brilliant that he went to Juventus to play Champions League football, and Juventus have been knocked out consequentially of his first Champions League campaign at the earliest opportunity. Yes, he's got a Europa League spot, but the irony of that's not lost on me. I will say that much. And I don't think we'll have the same problems that we had last season going into the January window. I think, given our league position now, we are a much more attractive proposition. With top four really looking shored up, that gap between City in second and everyone else widening. I think, yeah, for sure. We're a lot more of an attractive proposition. I think the money's there. We bid for Rafinha. We went up to a considerable amount. We did match the bid that Barcelona, or actually that Chelsea put in, and Barcelona bid less. The structure of our deal was slightly different. More of it was in add-ons. But we matched Chelsea's bid, which was the highest bid on the table for Rafinha, which was said to be about £65 million. So the money's definitely there to strengthen to that sort of tune for a winger. And I think let's see if they're prepared to put it on the table. Squad rotation so vital. If we can get players in the window, cannot have another Saka or Martinelli burnout. Absolute facts, man. Definitely preaching to the converted on that respect. It's all about what the board do. If Arteta is given the funds, then great. And I really hope that is the case. I can't stress this enough. The commanding position that we're in now, I really feel that if we strengthen correctly, we can win this league title. Can and will, as I've been explaining all day to some of my Man United friends that have been trying to get me to commit to coming off the fence. They are two different things. And we know what we're competing against. City won 4 of the 5 last league titles, not without reason. They've come through clutch in these situations, worse situations, might I add, in January. And they're not to be taken lightly. But if we do our job in January, why not? We're playing as good a football as City, I would say, at the moment. We've conceded less, kept more clean sheets. We've got more wins. We've got a 100% home record, which no other team in the league has, including City. So we've turned the Emirates into a fortress. Why can't we? Why can't we strengthen and go on and push for the title? Mudryk is a must. His pace is frightening. If teams press us, we can kick it long and get behind it easier. But he's also skillful. Him and Martinelli is the dream. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've said, in terms of, what, sort of Mudryk is capable of. He gives you, that extra dimension, that extra layer of depth. If you look at both Liverpool goals, we transition very quickly from winning the ball in the defensive third. And I feel that we learned that from the United game that we lost. We were like, United hit us on the counter. Liverpool are a team that can match us possession-wise, and they can pose a threat when they commit men forward. We have the pace and the quick transitioning capability within our team to also be dangerous as a counter-attacking team. This is the fundamental that I've said. And for me, teams that are unpredictable are the teams to be feared more. Teams that can mix it up tactically and stylistically and change the dynamic of the way that they set up and play and defend, or, sort of dominate in midfield and attack in the final third. Teams that have options and the ability to mix and match, dependent on the opposition that they face. That is the future. That really is how football games are won and lost in this day and age. So yeah, for me, Mudryk, he adds not just quality to our attacking lineup. He adds depth, and he adds a new dimension to which we can play and set up. And yeah, I mean that's really what I want to see. But yeah, before we wrap up today, I think big up the silver one. We are in this race. City can have key injuries, just like we can, and everyone says that we're 1 or 2 injuries away short from sort of having a season that capitulates. I'm going to keep harping on this. Yeah, I watch City. I've been watching them very closely because at the moment we are competing with them. At this moment, we are competing with them. And people that know me know that I don't just study my team, yeah, and who I go into war with, who's in the trenches in my camp. Know thy enemy, yeah. Know thy enemy, yeah. For those that know the art of war, yeah. Sun Tzu is something that it's a ideal that I've always tried to live by. I try to understand what I'm up against a lot more. So I've watched City very closely, Spurs very closely, Chelsea, Man United very closely, Newcastle now I'm watching more very closely because we can't rule them out of this race either. Their form guide in the last 6 games is literally identical to ours. What is it? Sort of 5 wins and a draw. So I've watched City closely, and I watched them against Leicester, and they played without Haaland in that game and without Foden. And yes, look, they created a lot of chances. They created enough chances to deserve to win that game, but they left the back door open on a number of occasions. And I personally feel better finishing on the day from Leicester. You see a very different result in that game. And yeah, you saw it against Newcastle. You saw it against Villa, Liverpool, Brentford beating them recently. That even with their better players, Haaland played in all those games. They are gettable. They're absolutely gettable. Yeah. And if these are the teams that can cause them problems, a number of which we've beaten already this season, we can absolutely cause them problems as well, Tony. And I've had like a lot of rivals say, we can't win the league because we can't beat City home and away. I looked all the way back to 2014. I couldn't find a time where City had beaten Liverpool home and away, or when Liverpool had beaten City home and away. And in the last 5 years, Liverpool won 1 league title and City 4. City didn't even beat Liverpool last season in the league. They drew both their fixtures and they still won the league. So a lot of this talk, we can't go on to win the league because we don't have a hope in hell of beating City. One, I think we do have a chance of beating City. Certainly if Brentford can and we beat them. Certainly if Villa can hold them to a point, we beat them. So certainly if Newcastle can cause them problems, and our form and our capabilities, and Newcastle's really has been the best. So to say, in the last sort of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games, we can absolutely cause City problems. But even if we don't, we can beat everyone else convincingly. Or really sort of not drop that many points in all of our other games, and we've shown that we can beat anyone. So far this season. So let's see, man. If we're lucky with injuries, I believe we can win the league. Strengthen in January, and we increase those odds. Hopefully, City prioritise the CL because otherwise, we're going to need 100+ points to win the Prem. And this is another thing that I want to say. Yeah, I've already predicted. Yeah, and you've already seen it. Yeah, with the defeats, the draws that City have had. Yeah, I don't think City are going to get their highest points tally if they win the league this season. A number of reasons. Obviously you've got the World Cup. If you look at their players, yeah, and obviously I went on GT Talks the other day, I spoke with him, Niger Englishman, a number of other prominent Armoury members. If you look at their players, City, a number of their players will be prominent first team members, a considerable number more than our first team. So if anyone's coming back from the World Cup burnt out, if anyone's coming back from the World Cup injured, the odds are increased that it will be City players by virtue of more of them playing for teams that it's likely will go further on in the tournament, but also being first team members, nailed on. I think there will be a higher element of fatigue in City squad than normal, than what we're used to, because of the World Cup being in the middle of the year. Obviously, that applies to us as well. But a lot of our young players, as I said, they don't start very often. It's going to be a long season. I don't think City will get the highest points tally they've had in a while, but I think, they are still favourites. And I think that does leave the door slightly ajar for Arsenal as well. But listen, look, it's been a great show. I'm kind of segueing into another subject now about our title credentials. And I do know that is something that a number of the boys will be speaking about on tomorrow's show. So be sure to tune into that as well. Big up everyone, that is in the cut, that has, tuned in. Thank you very much for your input. But yeah, as I mentioned, tomorrow's show, the guys will be talking about our title credentials. Big up everyone in the chat. Silver Fox, big up Luke, for tuning in as well. Big up Modini, Brenny, big up DWT, Mustafa, big up everyone that's been listening. Thank you very much. Don't forget to hit the like button, after the show or now, if you haven't already. Smash those likes. We're really trying to grow the channel. It really helps with the algorithm, and we appreciate all the support that you're showing to the Armoury. Smash those likes. Please don't forget that. If there's any comments, any questions that you've got about today's show, or about any other shows in the future as well, that you want to leave in the comment section after I've uploaded the video, please feel free to do so. I will respond to all the comments as well. That's something that I like to do. I like to keep conversations continuing and flowing. Let me know your thoughts. Mudryk to Arsenal. Is it a transfer you want to see happen? Is it one that you think we could benefit more from looking in other areas, or players in the same position, but the of other profiles, or that more cost effective? What are your thoughts? I want to hear them at the end of the show. Big up yourselves, and I will be back next week for sure. Peace out, people.